On today's episode, I've got the King of Swing. Oi, oi, and welcome to Chatting Tracks with me, Rob the Face Radio Burgess. Thanks for joining me today. On today's episode, I'm dipping my toes into the world with jazz and swing jazz. I've got Louis Prima Jr. on the show. Now, his dad, Louis Prima Sr., had hits with Sing, 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 and I Want to Be Like You from Jungle Book. In this episode, Louis talks about his dad's career, his return to music, and the new albums he's working on. He's a fantastic artist, and it was a wonderful dip into the world of jazz and swing jazz. And he told me some fantastic stuff about his dad, so stay tuned for that. If you've not done it yet, please like and subscribe, because it really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments what you think of the episode. Anyway, I'll see you on the next one. Ta-da! Normally my first question to a guest would be, was your parents influenced by music, and was you influenced by their music? But your dad was quite a famous musician. So for people that have never sort of heard your dad's name, can you just describe what he did and who he was?
Well, my father... he's tough to describe because I've always felt he was his own style of music and his own style of entertainer. He didn't follow any mold. I think he was a forerunner or a front runner in every music style change. My father had his first band as a teenager in the 20s in New Orleans, Louisiana, 1920s. He wrote Sing, 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 which is arguably the number one song in the world. I mean, it's the number one big band song easily, number one jazz song. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records. I mean, it's you still turn on the TV and it's in commercials and things. But he wrote that when he was in 1936. He was 26 years old. And then he went on to be a big band staple with hits through there. And then he formed a small combo and kind of put Vegas on the map entertainment-wise with Louis Prima and the Witnesses. Back then it was Keely Smith. He forged on through rock and roll, and people will say that he created rock and roll. I think what most people will recognize him for, at least, when we're out on the road and performing, you bring up the cartoon Jungle Book, Walt Disney's Jungle Book. And I think absolutely you're hard-pressed to find somebody that has not seen that cartoon growing up or as an adult. And my father was the voice of King Louie in that movie, and that's probably his most recognizable role. But he was a musician that people didn't respect as a musician. He was an entertainer that people didn't respect as an entertainer. But he drew crowds everywhere, and he was amazing, and people loved him. And I'm fortunate to be able to build on his catalog and kind of continue it and bring it into the future without being a tribute act. Absolutely, I was influenced by him.
It's amazing. I was doing a bit of research on your dad prior to this, and your dad's got such a distinctive voice that I read somewhere that they a lot of places wouldn't book him in the early days because they thought he was a black artist.
Absolutely. The irony in that is he was the first white artist to play at the historic Apollo Theater in New York. Probably because of that. But that, it comes from his roots in New Orleans. I mean, he did have a gravelly voice. And people always kind of, will say that he emulated or tried to copy Louis Armstrong. But the truth is, if you go back into the history of music in New Orleans and what they did, I mean, these were street cats. My father was 11 years old sneaking out of the house because they lived in the French Quarter to go see these fantastic inventors of jazz and the creators of that style of music back then. And they all were the same. They emulated the street performers and that style. I think he had a joy in his voice, though, that rose him above the rest. I think everything he did, he put joy into, and you could tell in his voice and in his singing and in his talking, he was truly wanted to be a happy person. And that's, for me, that's what made him distinct.
Yeah, he's got such an amazing, iconic voice. Even if you sort of like disregard Jungle Book and go sing,
right.
sing, sing, you can just hear that tone. And you're right. Your dad's voice sounds really friendly, even when he's singing.
It's accessible. It lets you, it does bring you in, and it does, and the joy that he had with music. I mean, just a Gigolo, I Ain't Got Nobody. He took two songs that are arguably some of the most depressing music in the world. I mean, Just a Gigolo's about a French airman returning home from the war, and it, it's a sad, sad, sad song. And my father just flipped it over and made fun of it. Not made fun of the song, but kind of makes fun of music in general when he's doing things. And I think that's where his brilliance was to be able to take anything and just have a bit of fun with it.
So your dad was obviously gigging a lot. Was you going along with your dad to the gigs and getting influenced by watching the gigs and things?
We traveled a lot with him during the summers. He generally worked about 20 weeks a year in Las Vegas and then was on the road. And he didn't like to fly, so he had a motorhome and traveled around. And during the summers, we would hop on that motorhome and drive with him. And I was young, but I still, there are vivid memories of being in the light booths at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas, watching him perform, and I can tell endless stories about different places we went and played, the Westbury Music Fair in New York, and Skoma's in San Francisco, and some other places where I have vivid memories of being there and can tell a story about things that happened. And I think more importantly is my father drugged me everywhere. Anytime he went out to do business or do anything, he took me with him. And I was with him when he recorded his last album in the studio as well.
Wow.
And I think what got me more than his performance was his humility and the way in which he interacted with everybody, because he treated everybody like they were best friends. He didn't have to know you. If you came up to him in a crowded room, he would take those 2 minutes to talk to you. I heard stories along the way, that there was a lady that came to see me perform, and she said that she had seen my father in Lake Tahoe. And for those that know Lake Tahoe, it's up in the mountain. It's, there's not a lot up there but the resorts and the lake. And this woman was with a friend of hers, and she got sick. And my father drove them down to the hospital in Reno in his limousine, and didn't know them, just they were fans. But he treated everybody like that as you went. And I think that's what hit me the most.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. My dad was a musician as well. He was a drummer.
Right
and
on.
He played country and western music. He loved country. So I'm just wondering, was it like me, where my dad would take me away every weekend to watch his band, and he was playing country, but I was kind of like, Dad, I want to listen to the Beatles. I'm not interested. Was it the same for you?
I think because my mom, Gia, my own, she was his last wife and his last singing partner, and she is the one that taught me drums. Matter of fact, I was 5 years old. She bought a drum set and bought it in the house. And she grew up with like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and she was front row when the Beatles played Vegas. And my father enjoyed all music. So there was never a point where, oh my God, your music sucks. At least not that I remember, and I don't think I ever disliked my father's style or what he did. When I decided to get into music, I absolutely went rock and roll because that's what I was into and that's what I loved. But I still always listened to my father, and I still would go sit in with people and do my father's stuff. And so it was an easy transition getting into it. We didn't fall trappings to the Hollywood or whatever whatever that was that it gives, I guess, a lot of people problems. I don't know. I thought we had a pretty stable upbringing, and I loved my father's music. I loved watching him perform. And I think he did love all styles of music. I mean, because he incorporated it into his shows. He always kept popular music in the shows. So I don't think that was an issue ever.
Fantastic. So you started as a drummer. What was it that drew you to the drums first? Was it your mum saying play the drums, or was you interested in hearing someone and going, that's what I want to do?
It was 100% banging on stuff. she bought this little drum set. There was this was back before they made tiny drum sets. They make those little kid drum sets. Now this was a Ludwig kit. It was a tiny little Ludwig kit, and they were metal drumsticks. One was red and one was blue. And she taught me to keep the red one in my right hand and the blue one in my left hand. She taught me how to play traditional. And I just liked banging on the drums. And then, piano happened in the first grade, and, you just kind of start playing stuff after that. I still always lean on the drums. I play the drums in every show we do. I get behind the kit. Fortunate enough to, on a couple shows, get behind the kit with my youngest son who plays. And I do respect and admire a lot of drummers. I loved the band AC/DC from the mid-'70s, and he could lay down a beat. Just watching him play inspired me. Of course, you love Geddy Lee, you love Phil Collins, you love Charlie Watt, you love everybody for their style. And I always admire the way that I think drummers just sit back there and drive the whole band, and I love it.
Do you perform out front as a drummer as well? Do you have that sort of drummer's timing when you're singing and you're singing?
I, for some reason, inherited a lot of my father's control over what goes on. I don't know if it's practiced or if it's just inherent or it's from being a drummer and playing the drums. But I absolutely do. I mean, I count most of the songs off. I kill most of the songs. I stop the songs. I speed up the songs. I slow down the songs. I very much like to have that kind of control and over what's going on. I'm fortunate to have a band that can follow me. Like my father, we don't work with set lists when I'm on stage, which is a nightmare for the sub player that comes in every once in a while. But they have to know my cues and my vocal cues and my hand cues and things in order to know what song we're doing next. And it's part of the fun that I have on stage is being in that control. I'm not just a singer standing up in front. I like to be a part of it.
I think that makes for also a special show when you go along to watch a show, when you can tell that no one really knows what's going on. And I think it just makes a more entertaining show for a punter as well.
It absolutely is. And, we get a lot of comments that, you'll read comments or reviews on the choreography or, what's going on. And there is nothing choreographed. There's probably 5 or 6 moments in every show that we kind of do every time we hit that spot in the song, just because it grew into something we do. But the rest of it's just kind of unorganized mayhem. Everybody knows when to jump up front. Everybody knows when it's their turn. Everybody does get the spotlight, and it's just this circus of things. It's like going to a 3-ring circus where you got something going on everywhere. You just have to decide in the crowd what you're going to look at this show, and you know what? Now you got to come back because you missed what was going on over there. And I think it does make it fun for the crowd. We do get a lot of comments about it, that it's not just music. It's very heartfelt entertainment and a good time, and people appreciate that.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen many bands over the years, and I've seen a lot of famous bands just phoning it in, and you can tell they're just phoning in a performance, and it really
nothing aggravates me more. Nothing aggravates me more than people standing up there. And equally, nothing aggravates me more than people with talent that are going to use that tape recording tonight, and just because the light show has to match, it's like, come on, we're robbing people if you do that. I think it cheapens everything. It's famously, who was it just the other couple weeks ago, threw the water bottle at somebody in the crowd, the girl rapper Cardi B. Somebody threw water at her, and she threw the microphone at him, but the song kept playing and she kept singing. I'm like, and everybody's mad she threw the mic. You should be mad that you paid however many dollars to get into this show and she's not singing.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, there's been a huge controversy with the backing track row lately. I've seen one of the bands that they said Kiss. I'm going to say it was Kiss. There was a big thing about Kiss, and they said they're using backing tracks. Anyway, I got to see them a couple of months ago for a $10 ticket, and I'm telling you, they weren't using backing tracks. I can 100% tell you. Don't get me wrong, the show was very organised, but they were not phoning that in. And I know what you mean. It can make, I guess for a performer as well, once it starts to get too polished, it does get boring.
It does get boring. And I used to get into, they're very, very early on in switching gears and moving into my father's style of music. I had put a band together with my sister, and her agent at the time presented me with this contract that was this thick, and I sent it to my attorney, and we laughed a lot as we read through it. And one of the things was that it was specifically spelled out choreography and this and that, and I went, you want to spend all this money on this because I have to be over here during the spotlight of this song. Well, what if the person paying attention to the song is over there? It doesn't work. And I think it's lost in the entertainment business right now, the art of entertaining. Everything is very too scripted. It's very well planned out and written, and you completely lose the spontaneity and the joy of being at a show and being able to focus on that connection between the crowd that you get. And it's sad. I hope it flips and comes back around, but I don't know. Yeah,
I think eventually it always breaks, doesn't it? Your first band was Problem Child. What sort of band was that?
Well, Problem Child, obviously an AC/DC song, and actually we wrangled over a lot of names and landed on that. But it was, if you took what AC/DC was doing and kind of mixed in a little Jane's Addiction and a little jazz and a little feel, that's what we were doing. We were a victim of not fitting into a genre, because that's when genres really started to hit in rock and roll. It wasn't just rock and roll anymore. It was heavy metal. It was grunge. It was alternative. It was, whatever the moniker was. And we kind of didn't fit in. We played a wide range of styles, most of it fun. I think I wrote probably 50 amazing ballads that I never sang because I just didn't want to not have fun on stage. So it was, we had a great following, and we recorded, we were in every major label's offices 2 and 3 times and just couldn't flip that switch on that record deal. Yeah. And I love those times. There's people still sing some of the songs to me as I run into people that I've never seen before. Hey, you were that guy with the Moon Tune song, weren't you? And they'll sing the song, and I'm like, well, I guess that just means I was catchy and just didn't catch on. I don't know. But it was straight up rock and roll. Very, very aggressive, very, very loud, very fast, very fun.
And what sort of writer were you? Were you lyrics first and music second, or the other way around?
It goes both ways, and it still goes both ways. It'll start with who did I just see? I think it was the Fonz. I think it was Henry Winkler on a show where he was talking about and they had just had a musical guest on, and forgive me, I can't remember the name. It wasn't Cake, or it was I can't remember the band, but they were talking about how, somebody tapping a knife in a restaurant on the table can start that wheel going in your head that turns into a song. The train going by, the washing machine making a particular noise, or in moments of silence, it's a brilliant line that'll pop into your head, and you write out the continuation of the line, and then you've got to add music. So it goes both ways with me, I guess. and I don't think I lean more on one than the other. I really don't.
Do you have a preferred instrument to write on? Is it piano? Is it? I know it's crazy to say drums. Could you write on drums if you were doing?
I have written on drums. It's piano. I'm not I'm not overly skilled on a lot of the instruments that I play. I tell people I kind of gave up music after school because I concentrated on the trumpet, and I just never thought anything I picked up. I didn't think I was that phenomenal at it. I always felt that you've got to be the Eddie Van Halen, so to speak, of that instrument, whatever it is. It's just my personal feeling, and I never thought I was that great at anything until I put a microphone in my hand and I went, oh, this I can do. But it's the piano's the easiest because you can go slow with it. I'm familiar with most of the chords and things like that. So that's what I end up when I get into it. Also, I'm fortunate to we do writing sessions where me and the other writers that I work with will get together and you bounce ideas off each other. So I can come in with my guitar player Ryan and I can just hum something to him and he'll get it and he'll play it exactly how I think it should sound, and we go from there. But yes, I've written music on drums.
I bet you've forgotten more brilliant songs than you've written down as well.
I hate the Notes app in the iPhone because you'll type out this lyric and what was that lyric? You go like and you read it and you can't come up with a melody. And when I write something, there's a melody to it. People compliment my prose, but I'm a guy that puts melody to it. But yeah, there are dozens. And I mean, I could show you lists. My drummer, we call it, Shabby Road, his, studio in Phoenix is where we meet to go write things. And, they have a whiteboard, big whiteboard on the wall where they just write random lyrics if it comes into their head. And this thing, there's no space on it. And you go, how do you even find anything on there? But I think all good writers are like that. You've got books and books and books of stuff that might have been brilliant and that's never going to come out because you can't remember.
So am I right in thinking Problem Child disbanded and you sort of moved away from music for a while? Is that right?
Very frustrated with the music business. I'm a businessman at heart. I think that's one of my biggest downfalls in the music business is it's not a business that caters to smart people on the paycheck end of it. So, when grunge was taken over, I kind of got tired of hearing sing grunge, sing grunge, sing grunge. Right. I'm like, I'm not that depressed. I'm not that angry. And I think it doesn't play into longevity because, you can be angry and mad for one album, but you start making money, you're not that angry and mad anymore, are you?
It's true, yeah.
So I was just frustrated with it, and I had given myself not a deadline, but a time frame. If I'm going to give up on the world and concentrate on music, I'm not going to do it forever. You got to be realistic. Rock and roll is a young man's game. You got to get in, get out. So it was time to go. And I started raising a family and got a day job and just went and sat in with friends and did music for fun for a while. I sang in an AC/DC tribute band for a while on top of it all. But, and it was when my sons were old enough to know that I'd be on the road and be able to take care of each other. That's when I started really hitting it heavy to get back into music. I kind of always knew I would come back because I enjoy it more than I should. I love being on stage. I love to a fault. I love being on the road and in buses and planes and trains and automobiles. I love it as my soul, and being on stage is the greatest feeling in the world. So I knew I would come back. And I just didn't know when. And fortunately, I came back with good timing, I suppose.
So did you go from your day job to forming the Witnesses straight away, or was there bands in between, or was it?
So there was a lot of bands in between. Nothing formed formally. It was mostly just going and sitting in with people and having fun. There was a odd encounter as I ran into an old manager friend that said he had some people that were looking for a Louis Prima type band, and he pitched me, and he's like, "Do you still sing?" And I'm like, "I haven't done anything in a couple of years." So we were talking, and then a strange phone call from a friend of mine, Mike Varney, who owns Shrapnel Records, got me involved in this show that he was involved in, where I went and sang a couple of my father's songs. And I think the reaction there kind of tipped the scale to go, okay, this is what I want to do. So I went back to the manager. I said, okay, this is what I want to do. I'll start with my father's music. I don't want to play it for the rest of my life. There's room to grow there. You can build on it. I want a band of musicians. I don't want chart readers. I want guys that want to be part of the show, and I don't want to be involved in the business. Well, all of that worked out except being involved in the business, because I can't get away from that. So I probably started, it was about 2004 when that started happening. About 2006, we were serious about it and doing a show here and there. In 2010, I think I had found all the pieces to my stage puzzle. I had found the sax player, the drummer, the guys that were serious and were going to entertain and be part of the fun and were brilliant. And I found all those pieces, and we played Jazz Fest here in New Orleans. And the week before Jazz Fest, I just walked in and quit my job. And I said, I think I've got the product. Let me take all of my savings and pay off my house. That way they can't take my box away from me. And grabbed my two sons and said, I'm going on the road. I'll see you when I get home. And it was literally like that, and no looking back. We struggled for a while gaining the momentum, but we got momentum. We put out the first album. We recorded it in 2011. It came out in 2012. That's when we met Jim Urban from Warrior Records. We had recorded the album ourselves at a friend of mine's studio in Las Vegas, Tone Factory, and ran into an argument with an investor and was introduced to Jim. And Jim said, I'll put your album out but I have a question. This album's all your father's material. Do you write? I said, yes, I write. He said, well, give me some examples of some things that you've written. So we sent him a couple things, and he said, all right, let's put this album out, but you got to promise me number 2 and number 3. And let's get a relationship going. And I said, okay, send me a contract. And he sent me a contract, and I readied all the lawyers and got out all my books and my red marker, and I opened the contract, and there were 2 things only it was small, it was simple, and there were 2 things. And I sent him an email and said, yeah, I don't understand this one, and I don't know why this one's in there. And in 10 minutes, he sent it back, and they were gone. I go, you didn't have to remove them. He goes, look, if it's not beneficial for you, it's not beneficial for me. Let's make music, and let's make people happy. And it's been a brilliant friendship since. So a lot of right turns starting in 2010, and that's brought us here, thankfully. You've
got 2 albums. You've got Return of the Wildest and Below, and they're both interesting albums. They're both really, really interesting. No, they're great. I'm just interested in the recording process. Was it all done in a live room at the same time with just a vocal overdub, or was it separate?
It's as close to live as you can get. And we did, when we recorded by ourselves, we did it this way. When we recorded with Jim, which we recorded at Capitol Records in the same room that my father recorded. And we've actually recorded album number 3, but the pandemic in the world isn't letting us release it yet. But it's there. But it's live. It's everybody playing at once, and then weed through and get the parts nailed down. So you're playing up until you get the best drum track from start to finish. We're not cutting and pasting, we're start to finish. Once you get that drum track, then you work on the guitar track. So everything is live. When you hear, and Jim is brilliant at this, when you hear a lot of the banter and the background noise, especially on Blow, that's real-time stuff that's happening that he leaves in there to add to that live feel. I think outside of AC/DC and a few other bands like maybe Sweet and things like that, it's hard to find an artist that captures that live on an album, and I think we captured that live on recordings by doing it that way. It's not, I know how people record now, and I don't think I'll ever do it.
Yes, I hope not. Blow. I love the album Blow. I've got to be honest. I think that's your strongest album of the two.
Thank you.
I think it's fantastic. You're right. I love the studio banter and the count-ins, and I love all that stuff. You did an amazing cover of Goody Two Shoes by Adamant on there as well. No, I love Adamant. So can you explain why that was on there?
Oh, this goes way back in time. It's a song that I don't know if I was a fan of when it first came out, but it kind of grew on me, and it took a friend of mine taking me to go see him live for me to really buy in on Adamant, and I loved his performance. I loved his style. I ended up liking most of the songs. So we were sitting around going, all right, we're going to go original. We're going to write music. I think we need a cover outside of Louis Prima. What can we do that's fun? And we bounced around a lot of things, and I don't know why I kept coming back to Goody Two Shoes. It was the first one I bought up, and it was probably driving in the car, and I heard it. And when I hear songs, I always go, how does this sound with horns? How does this sound with this? How does this go with that? And I always pictured that song as being amazing if I did it how I wanted to do it. It's a great song to begin with. Let's take and make it ours. And it just kind of stuck. It was the most logical choice. And and you always do this with the auspice of going, okay, everybody's got to recognize it. When you play the song, everybody's got to know it. So there was a lot of argument on nobody knows that song. And I go, no, everybody knows this song. Trust me, everybody knows this song. And when we play it live, I look around, I go, see, everybody knows this song.
It's fantastic. I love Adamant. I've been a huge fan since I was a kid. I interviewed Chris Thompson that actually produced the record as well.
Oh, right on.
Shoes. And he was saying that he recorded the drums in Abbey Road Studio 1 right in the middle.
Oh, no way.
Right on.
So that, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it was only him. It sounds like there's 50 drummers, doesn't it? It was him by himself.
It's always the echoes, man. You got to love it.
It's brilliant. And generally when I listen to an album, there'll be one song that will make my ears just go, oh, what's that? That turn up song.
Yeah.
Someday on there is that track is amazing. Can you tell me a little bit about that, please?
So there's two stories that go along this line. The first of which it's called the Dolphin Bar. There's a hotel in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and we had a couple nights off, and we're drinking in the Dolphin Bar, and it's me and my guitar player Ryan McKay and my drummer A.D. Adams, and we're drinking. And we're talking about things, and I don't remember which one of us said, well, we'll always have someday. And Ryan, who is famous with the Irish goodbye, and if you don't know what the Irish goodbye is, it's when you get up and leave and nobody knows you left. Ryan stands up and goes, good night, and left. And I get a phone call early in the morning, and he's like, you up? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I'm coming to your room. And he comes into the room with his guitar, and I can shuffle through here, and I got the piece of paper in there, I promise you. He's got the notepad from the hotel. It's this big. And he's got half the chorus and one verse of Someday. And he wrote it off, we'll always have someday. So we sat and continued writing and finished the song out. And we were getting ready to, we're amping up to go into the studio in August, and some unfortunate changes had to be made in the band. And one of which was the girl that sings with me. And I'd I had met Leslie online on Twitter. I was watching football, and the Brian Setzer Orchestra was playing during commercial breaks live for the football broadcast. And I made a comment, something about the national anthem was lip synced and this and was happening, and the background singer in the Brian Setzer Orchestra is upstaging the whole band. And I get this thank you, and it's her, and she's one of the vixens. And we met and we talked, and I was like, would you like to come in? And she had never recorded, she had never fronted a band as a singer, and that was the first song she sang in the studio for us. And it's we gave her a little bit of free rein on, okay, here's the guidelines of what we think it should do, hit it, and boy did she hit it, knock that out of the park. And I think I said earlier, I've written a lot of really good ballads and never sang them, and I'm glad to be able to have people around me that can sing them, and she's one of them. And we got another one coming up on the new album that I think will turn some heads as well, but that's my favorite song on the album as well.
It's wonderful. What I love about it is the sound you've got on it. You could have given that to the Shangri-Las and it wouldn't have sounded out of place.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds timeless, even though it's new, if you see what I mean. Like it's brilliant.
It is, and it's simple in its writing. The lyrics, I think, fell together nicely. It's lyrically a strong song. The hook, the musical hook, is simple, and the horns, the horns are loose, a little dirty, and a little haunting. And I think the horn line, besides her vocal performance, make the whole song for me. But I can listen to that time and again.
I'm going to put some links to your albums in the description of the video and the podcast, but I'm going to separate that one. I think people need to hear that
I appreciate it
because it's great.
It's a great song.
It's brilliant. Your album Blow is full of energy. It starts with energy, and it's a lovely journey. Like, it starts as if it's a live concert, then you have your mid ballad there, and then carries on full of energy. Your new album, is it the same sort of thing? Is it like a live set?
It is. And I deal with things in journeys, and I'm on a journey right now to take my father's music and my music where I think it should be. My father grew and expanded and created new. Every time he touched a studio and every time he touched a stage, he was not happy sitting back enjoying what he had already done. So in that aspect, putting this band together, I wasn't going to sit on what I had already done or what my father had already done. I did not want to be a tribute act. I wanted to pay tribute, and I wanted to create new. So we took Return of the Wildest was let me take my father's favorite songs, and there's a few fan favorites in there, and I'm going to shake it up, and we're going to put it out there, and then we're going to move on. Blow was step 2. Which was incorporating a song or two of my father's. I got to do a ballad with my father, thank you technology. And step 3 is taking it a step further. This is all original with 2 surprises. And we've stepped outside of the box. I think we're really good as writers challenging ourselves. I've always said that I write songs I can't sing. But you want to do that. You want to challenge yourself. You want it to be difficult. You want it to be something interesting and new. And I think it's going to possibly alienate a few people that want me to stay true to form. But I think it's going to thrill people that enjoy what we do in our live show, which is anything and everything. So it's another step in the direction. It's taking some wild chances, especially with the ballad, and another duet with my dad, and we'll see what happens. We literally stepped out of the recording studio into the pandemic. I was in Vegas and had to drive back to LA to do some cleanup vocals like a week or two after we had gotten out of the studio, and I rode my motorcycle, and I was the only one on the road. It was the most haunting and spooky thing in the world, and you just kind of kept waiting for the world to open, and it didn't open. And, you know, I've got people asking all the time, when's the album coming out? And my only answer is that we didn't do this ourselves, so I can't CD baby it out to you. This is a record label with Universal Music Publishing, and there's guidelines and there's rules and there's stipulations, and we have to have X amount of tour dates and X amount of support, and it's just not there yet because of the pandemic and then the economy. So we sit patiently waiting. It's a brilliant album. There's some amazing things on it. We did shove one song out there off of it. We did a Christmas song called Hey Skinny Santa. It's a fun little tune, and that's available. You can go buy that online right now. It's not too early to add to your Christmas playlist. It's a great little song, and we hope, you know, fingers crossed that we get to get this out there, because it's new stuff. It's got all the fun that was on Blow. I mean, we are who we are, so we go and have fun in the studio. And Jim is brilliant. Jim Urban is brilliant in pulling that out of people. He's the Warrior Records label president, and he and I co-produced the album. And I can't wait for it to get out. I wish I could play some of it for you. And the only thing that I can say is we do Pennies from Heaven as a duet with my dad.
Nice.
Not allowed to tell. I actually don't think we have permission to do it yet from Universal.
Right.
But we did it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And what's it like when you're sort of working out a song which to do? Like, so you probably had a million songs to choose from to do with your dad. What was it that made you pick Pennies from Heaven?
Jim did. We play, there's a club in LA called the Cicada Club. It used to be a department store, men's haberdashery, I think. It's straight in downtown. It's been in 100 movies. The movie with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, the name of the movie just
Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Yes, where she straps the bomb to them when they're dancing. That's the Cicada Club. Gorgeous place. We're playing there, and Jim had come out to see us, and hadn't played that song in a long time, and we threw it back in the set. And we go upstairs. They have an absinthe bar, and probably one of the best craft bartenders in the world. And we go up there to having a drink with Jim, and he goes, "You got to do Pennies from Heaven on the new album." I go, "You know, whatever you want to do." He goes, I can. He goes, "Work it up. Work up an arrangement." I said, "Okay." So, you know, and then as with all other songs, you know, we bounce everything off Jim. So we send him just a bunch. Here. This is what it is. Pick and choose. And he picks and chooses. And, you know, if I don't agree with the choice, I'll go, I think this is a better choice. We'll argue about it for a while, and he'll win because he's smarter than me. And and we got into the studio, and, you know, we always mess with, he's very good at messing with what key we're in so that it's ideal for the band and the vocals. And we had changed the key of Pennies from Heaven along the way in pre-production. And we got in the studio, and I walk in the door, and he's got everything, everything's mapped out and stuff. He goes, we got to take Pennies from Heaven back to the original key, and you need to do it at that tempo. I've got the track, and you need to eliminate this. There were some changes we had made. And he goes, you need to sing it you need to do it as close to the way as your father did it. I said, well, why? And he goes, because I've got the track, and we're going to use it.
Nice.
And I go, they said, okay. And he said, no, but we're going to do it. And we'll have the whole song in its entirety if we don't get to do it. And if we get to do it, this is what it'll sound like. And when he first sent it to me, we're producing it over the internet, which is always neat to me, that you're able to do that. When he first sent the song to me, it was into the second verse before I realized that I'm singing with my father. I guess that's a compliment. somehow that we do sound alike. But we don't just use him. We use Sam Butera on the sax. By the end of the song, it's both bands playing. It's a lot of fun, and I just can't wait to get it out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Your live shows are just so full of energy that they're exhausting to watch, even on YouTube, to be honest with you. So for people in America, where's the best place to go and see you? And are you going to come to England and tour England at any point?
We are working on England very hard, especially Jim. We had several dates. We were working on 30 days. We were going to do the whole month of October in 2020 in Europe. And of course, that all fell apart. And we're working to get that back together. Just so people know, there's 12 of us on the road. There's a lot of logistics and a lot of cost involved. We're working on it. Trust me. Every time we played over there, it's been a blast, and we can't wait to get back. In the States, it's always louisprimajr.com, Louisprimajr.com. You scroll down and our calendar's there. It's not that full right now. It's been a tough year and a half with the economy and things like that, keeping this act on the road. But we got gigs few and far between, but they're out there. We're doing about 1 or 2 good weekends a month. We're really concentrating on next year, building a tour together. That way we can put the album out and things. And part of that, cross our fingers, will be Europe. But you can go on there and there's a little follow button. It's run by bands in town. You click follow, give me your name and your email address and where you're from, and you'll get notifications when tickets go on sale. But there are some dates there. We're on the East Coast, mostly toward the end of the year, and back in the Midwest as well. And just looking forward to getting back to a regular schedule.
Fantastic. I'll put your website in the link in the description again. Thanks for chatting today. It's been absolutely amazing.
It's been a blast. I appreciate your time, and hopefully when we get over there, we can say hi.